Hey everyone, Isabelle here. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and we have Thanksgiving in the United States coming up this week. For us at Gem Formulas and the Gemstone Therapy Institute, we are gearing up for the coming holiday season. And by the way, this Friday, Black Friday, we have something super special for you going on, so watch out for our email. I'm also going to be giving a live online presentation on Zoom next week called Gemstones for Your Journey. It will be next Tuesday, December 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern. And what I'll be doing is leading you through, you can call it a creative visualization, but I like to call them healing journeys. It will last about an hour to an hour and a half, and I'll be sharing in that healing journey, I'll be bringing into it, and you'll get to see them, about a dozen or so healing gemstone necklaces that I specially selected for this event. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. If you've never experienced the energies of healing gemstones, this is a really wonderful time to give it a try, and you'd be surprised that you can actually feel those energies even at a distance. So for today, I also have more to say about polarity, believe it or not. It is a super huge topic. You know, lately I have been talking about, or just mentioning, different types of polarity imbalances. And then someone said to me, they wrote to me, well, wait a second, what do you mean different kinds of polarity imbalances? I only know about polarity reversal, so what else is there? Well, I'm going to answer that today. The first one is, well, indeed, the most well-known type of polarity anomaly is the reversal, where north is at the south and south is at the north. And this typically shows up in chakras when the spectrum feeding the crown, instead of dominating in the purple color ray, instead has a spectrum dominating in red. And when the root chakra, instead of being fed by a spectrum that dominates in red, instead dominates at purple. So you have red at the crown and purple at the root. That is an imbalance. That is a polarity reversal as it shows up in chakras. It can also show up in different individual target areas, different parts of the body. But this kind of anomaly, when it does show up in the chakras, can make people feel very out of sorts, very out of touch with themselves. It's almost a topsy-turvy feeling, not sure which way is up. They lose their connection with, well, where am I going in my life? Where am I heading? And it can be very disconcerting. The second type of polarity imbalance is the 90-degree shift. So what happens here is that the magnetic field, and when you're working with target areas, it means the magnetic field of the cells and molecules in that area, well, they aren't weak enough to produce a full 180-degree shift, but yet they're not strong enough to maintain the magnetic field and to keep it intact. And so you get these 90-degree shifts. So finding this type of polarity imbalance is actually good news in a way, in that energetic nourishment, such as that which is provided by healing diamonds, can make for very easy correction. When there is a partial turn, so it's not 90 degrees, it's not 180, it's a few degrees, this is not polarity. This is a type of anomaly that points to a structural imbalance. It's a completely different. Yeah, it says more about the person's energetic structure than polarity. So that's something completely different. And yes, can also be corrected with one healing diamond, whereas the corrections required for these more the anomalies that I'm talking about, they're a little more complicated. They do require 2 healing diamonds. So a third type of polarity anomaly, I like to call the puzzle box. This is a situation where where the 90-degree shifts start to pile up on each other. And we have the anomaly that I call the puzzle box. It's a difficult one to correct because it can involve several causative factors. The way through it is usually to begin by acknowledging that this is a puzzle box, and then use your healing diamonds to nourish and clear and strengthen and vitalize the magnetic field of the body as a whole. And this is usually enough to unravel the puzzle box and return a healthy polarity to your target area. People with puzzle box polarity imbalances tend to have issues or concerns that they really don't know how to solve. Try as they might, maybe they've been dealing with the same thing for years and they just can't seem to make headway at all. That usually points to a puzzle box type situation. So number 4, the next one that I want to talk about is found within the magnetic field itself. And it occurs because there is a buildup of energy in the magnetic field, and it actually causes a stoppage of the flow, a flow that should maintain and sustain that field. And as a result, there's a breakdown in the magnetic field due to this excess. So there's an excess here, you might say, and to balance that out in the magnetic field, there's a hole here. Well, it's like a hole. And where that hole is, you can't measure the polarity because there's not a magnetic field to measure. This usually occurs as a result of cells that are wayward. They've really gone off their track. They've really lost touch with their blueprints. And the tissues they're involved with tend to be obviously unhealthy. Very unlikely does it appear in magnetic fields that surround a person as a whole, but when it does, I would guess that the health circumstances are usually relatively serious. The life energy is being significantly curtailed. So number 5, the other magnetic field anomaly that affects healthy polarity is a different type of absence in the field. And I have seen this more than I'd like to admit because it signals the waning of life energy in the area. Usually the microbiome leaves first, abandoning the cells that they once coddled and cared for. So that's what the microbiome does. It cares for our cells. And when cells are not supported by their symbiotic microbiota, it becomes very difficult for them to maintain their vitality. This type of absence, again, is relatively easy for healing diamonds to locate, evaluate, and correct, especially when healing gemstones are also employed in this session. In particular, that is the yellow fluorite with the yellow tourmaline, which is especially nourishing for our microbiome, helping it to find its balance. The 6th anomaly that I'll cover today reveals itself when diamond and gemstone therapy practitioners evaluate 5-element relationships. Now, this is the 5 elements as defined by Chinese medicine. And when we work with evaluating 5-element relationships at a target area, we look at the nourishing relationship, we look at of the 5 elements, and we also look at the control relationships. So, for example, water and wood and fire are 3 of those 5 elements, and water is supposed to nourish wood. That's a healthy relationship. And water is supposed to control fire. That's also a healthy relationship. What signals a polarity imbalance is when instead of water controlling fire, the fire tries to control the water. And whenever I see this in a 5-element evaluation, I go right to the polarity correction, because once you get the polarity straightened out, the 5-element relationships usually balance out quite nicely, especially where the fire, for example, is trying to control the water. And of course, you can see that in any of the control relationships throughout the 5-element wheel. I have to say, though, sometimes when you have, instead of water nourishing wood, for example, sometimes you might have wood trying to nourish water, another confusing situation, but that's less likely to point to polarity. In that situation, I would actually look at polarity, but I would probably do more to support structure because that's usually the underlying cause of that kind of backward nourishing situation. So again, a simple way to identify and correct polarity reversals and also 90-degree shifts can be done with just one healing diamond, and you can learn that in Diamond Level 1 studies. You can start anytime with our Diamond 102 classes. Well, it's one course. There's 10 classes in the course. You'll need 2 7-color A healing diamonds, though, to learn to work with these more intriguing types of polarity imbalances. And you can learn to identify, evaluate, and correct them, all the ones I talked about today, in the Diamond Therapy Level 2 training. Well, I hope that was interesting to you. If it was, give me a thumbs up. Share the video with someone that you love. Leave a comment. Whoops, banged my microphone. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and have a really happy Thanksgiving. Okay, bye-bye for now.